if you had one thing to say to church pastors or church revitalizers or church planters, what would that one thing be?
There's a lot of things that you're going to sense you need to do, you feel pressure to do. But a statement that was given me early in my Christian life is, Pastor Johnny, if you'll take care of the depth of your ministry, God will take care of the breadth. One of the statements, a simple little statement, but I feel like I've kind of coined it, at least I'm quoted all over the world with it, and that is, if someone says, how can I pray for you? The first thing I always give them is, pray God help me to stay close and clean. Close and clean. And so, if you're not close and clean, you can do all this other stuff and just lose it overnight. You can disqualify yourself. You can beat your own self at the game. And I've just found that if God helps me to keep my motives pure and my mind clean, and it's a struggle. It's always going to be a struggle with men. We're just geared that way. But if we mind that, it's amazing what God may do with us. Here's a statement the Lord put in my heart recently. It's a long ways from here to where God probably wants to take you. And we have no way of knowing where that is. Who would have dreamed when I came out of the pool hall, managing the pool room, high school dropout, raised in a project on welfare, no male influence in my life, who would have dreamed that God would raise me up to lead the largest Protestant denomination? And God is my witness. I don't say that arrogantly. Sure. That's got to be a testimony to Jesus Christ and what he's able to do with man. Who would dream that he'd take a kid that wouldn't give a book report and make you a communicator to so many people, or one that hated school and dropped out to become an author? I mean, it's just, it is so much of a picture of grace. Who believed that God would take the most adamant persecutor of the church in the first century and let him draft most of the New Testament? I mean, it's such a thing of grace. But if someone, don't get disappointed at this marker or this marker, at the maras of our life, the places of bitterness.
Sure.
Someone told me one time, said, get your map down, geographically measure how far it is from Mara, where their pools of bitterness were, to Elam, which was an oasis. And it's somewhere between 5 and 10 miles. So they've journeyed all this distance, they're at a place of bitterness, and they're ready to throw in the towel, they're murmuring. But they held on. And sometimes when we're in our greatest struggles, we may be so close to an oasis, but we just don't know where God's going to take us. So last thing you want to do is die with the questions, what if? And I'll stop with this.
Sure.
There's a young man here came up, and I've not seen him since he was a little boy. And now he's tall, and when he told me who he was, immediately I saw the feature of his father. His dad was my best friend in college, and we lost contact with each other in the last few years. He was one of the most gifted communicators. Everywhere he would go, the church would explode. If you're not careful, you could be envious of him, but I just loved him so much. But then every opportunity that came along that was a little bigger than where he was, he would go. And I thought, if he keeps that up, they're going to quit calling him. He needs to stay put. He's doing a great work. And he continued to do that until it just about crippled his ministry. And he was just such a naturalist that he's the type, if he had to be careful, he had so many natural gifts, he could get by on that. John Max wrote a book entitled Talent's Never Enough. And especially you watch music guys, they can wing it, do better than most people.
Sure.
But if you ever see them use, God ingrained and God empowered gifts, you're never satisfied with just their talent anymore. This guy had so many talents, but I believe there was an abuse to God's gift in his life. And his son wept a moment ago, and he said, Daddy's divorcing Mom. He's without a job. And said, Johnny, he had those things that always kept him hyped up because he was so gifted and everybody's patting him on the back. And said, now that he doesn't have it and he's disqualified himself from it, he has to take pills to stay up. And so that's a terrible story, but it's a very immediate story. That can happen when yet, where would I be had I stayed true?
Wow.